Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. I'll go through the pitch deck as if you've followed our story to date. You've heard a lot from Mark on various videos and podcasts. So I'll run through the presentation in the pitch deck that's showed. So bear with me while I share my screen. Excellent. So my name is Yaz. I'm one of the founders here at AiCarer, and my focus is on the product and strategy of the business. Our business is called AiCarer, and it's really focused around that care environment, or the care environment before we have to get into our clinical environments. And I'll tell you a little history on this because this is quite important. My background is in digital health. I've been in population health for a while, and the health to the background. And my father got quite injured while waiting for me to find him. I was in my main house just living my life, and he got trapped in between a door and a wall. And it was 4 hours later that I would just happened to be taken out to shopping and found that he was stuck there. And when he went to the hospital, he had a broken shoulder, but probably more relevant than that was it was in that process we found out that he had early dementia, and he also had some heart disease. Now, one of the things the doctor said that stayed with me till today is that line of, if we knew earlier, there was a whole range of things we could have done. But unfortunately, we didn't know early. And this is where the idea came, is around, well, firstly, these fall pendants that tell us if they have a fall is quite late and people don't wear them. But also with all the sensors that we have in the world right now, why is it that we can't build something of a early warning system using off-the-shelf devices that are becoming more and more relevant, more and more available, and a lot lower cost? And this is the basis of AiCarer and what we started building many years ago. That's now sort of commercialized in the past few months. So the problem we're looking to address is really that of caring. So there's a lot of attention on hospitals and hospitalizations, but this is focused outside of that in population health, which is we know that adults want to stay home. There's about 2.6 million Australian unpaid carers, and they provide over $77 billion annually in support, and that's a report from Deloitte. But ultimately and fundamentally, while I'm talking to you today, my mum, my dad, they're at home, and I don't know how they are. And there isn't that many tools available for me to find out. And that's what we're kind of focused in on, is how do we help carers like myself, like Mark, like hopefully a lot of you guys, how do we answer that question? Is mum okay? And is there any way for us to know in advance, or even if things are deteriorating, so we might, nudge an action. Hey, let's go see a GP, or any of those types of things that we can do, or at least be a little bit more intelligent when we do meet on the weekend, because certainly my parents don't like to share when they're not feeling so well. It would be great for me to have some prompts about that. And that's what our focus is on the carer. So the market at the moment sort of divided into two sections. One is sort of the fall pendants and the home care devices. So these are either cameras or sensors, radars, or fall pendants that will tell you a little bit about the person. They're not worn, and that's half the problem. They don't like to wear medical devices and things like that. And also just knowing about whether my mom or dad fall, that's really important to me, no doubt. But there's so much more I want to know, and there's so much more that can be known. And at the other stage, there's the fitness apps and sort of wearables track, which is more generalized health. So you have that from, likes of Apple or Google that gives you a watch and some health insights. And it's not really tailored to the care environment. Home sensors are expensive, they can be invasive, and they don't really make sense when people are walking around. And clinical RPM solutions are clinically led, focus on single conditions, and then again doesn't really talk about the carer perspective of that persona, right? And what we realize is, like, families need a single sort of dignified, proactive, and predictive solution, and that's what AiCarer is solving. So the thesis behind this, and it's a really important one, particularly some of the questions that we've got during this process and beyond, is around diagnoses, in that We are absolutely not looking to diagnose anything. What we are trying to do is find significant shifts in their patterns that could start to yield concern. And that yielding concern can result in early intervention. That can be as simple as telling my mum that she should visit a GP or book a virtual consult, or it can be as much as a change into the pattern or change in behavior. But there's a couple of theses that we have. One is we should not need proprietary devices. At the moment, Garmin is a significant partner of ours, but any available wearable provides us with all of the data we could possibly need to run these sort of pattern recognition. And it should be at the leisure of our customers or the elderly to pick what device they want from their local shop and be able to engage in this via a simple app. What we do is we detect these meaningful deviations, we notify the carers of that in real time and allow that ecosystem to form. We then provide weekly well-being so we can start to look at trend analysis, very specific to this context, and give them a good idea so when a carer does visit, they're well informed. There isn't a stigma of having a wearable. There's minimal hardware risk here. And these types of devices are available anywhere in the world, which gives us the opportunity to globalize very, very quickly. Finally, allowing a care provider into the ecosystem is really important. So we're doing a lot of home care at the moment, and an allied health professional or mental health professional can start talking about some targets for them to have, be it go for a walk every day or please try to sleep properly. And these are all great advice, but the health professional can't be there every day. And they're also not incentivized or funded to be there every day. But what they can do is set the parameters that the person should follow as health professionals. But then if those parameters aren't being followed, we can now provide the care network to be involved in that. And that could be a message to the son that says, hey, mom hasn't been sleeping real well. And this allows them to intervene, them to know what's going on, or being part of that care system. And ultimately, when the healthcare professional visits next time, they can review the overall trends that occurred in that week. This allows them to ask better questions and also know what's going on a bit better, but still allowing the carers to be involved in that process. And that's what we've built out as AiCarer.
Hi again.
So very quick dive into the technology, and we can dive into this, is we look at the continuous behavioral baselines. Now, this is important in that we're not using data that comes from an API or any of that. These are hard integrations into the device itself. And this is important because that's proprietary to us, and so are the data sets coming out of that. And then we build a baseline of the person based on time of day, both night and day. And we're detecting deviations from normal. Once that deviation occurs, we then activate additional sensors. These are expensive sensors that you can't have on all the time. And we get a very strong data print of what's going on. To give you an example, it might be that my mother goes to the gym from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. every day. So it'd be normal for her health variance to sort of move. But she might determine on one day that she went at 9 a.m. Now, that might trigger a bit of an issue. But when we turn on the second stage, we know, oh, okay, it's following the same patterns of a gym. So that's what's happening over there. So that's a really simple sort of example. It's a lot more deeper than that. We then have a reasoning engine, which is a RAG-based LLM that's able to ingest a lot of very available academic and clinical data around analysis of these types of data sets, and then eventually provide a log to the carer on what's going on. What's great about our system is that when a log happens, both the user and the carer can tag that log and actually tell us what's happening. This then allows us to take that data print and use reinforced learning to get better and better on the care of the individual. And the individual is what I want to home in on. We're building models around the individual. We're not building models on the population. What we are able to do is use population data to inform prompts to the user. So The abstracted proprietary data set is the real power here, in that we are ecosystem agnostic. The intent is not to be only on one device, but to be on all devices. Governments can't partner with a single brand, but they can partner with us, and they have. We do a lot of consent-based analysis, so we require a lot of permissions that otherwise can't be given or needs to be explicitly given by the user and the carer. And these are not things that can be done easily as well. We have a very carer-centric framework that is focused very much on the carer, the home care provider, and it's not focused on things like diagnoses. However, integrates with things that can diagnose. And the important thing is, as a family or a carer, I am interested in the generalized care of my mother and father, not just the specifics of, oh, an incident of a fall occurred, although that is important, of course. We also have the ability to integrate with partners that are doing amazing things. This could be driving fatigue, mental health scores, and a whole range of stuff that have done a ton of work in that one area. And we can leverage that to then add greater and greater value to us as a generalized platform. What we are doing is building towards an intelligent health agent. We're on pre-launch of our audio AI center. This allows us an AI agent to actually call our vulnerable and our elderly to check in when the data suggests. So imagine a really bad sleep combined with some change rates, resulting in a call just to check in. And based on that check-in, let the carer know what's going on. This model allows us over time to do an amazing amount of things, from booking a virtual consult if we think something is problematic, start to look at their day, and make clever decisions on what they should do about their health, and also what the carer should do as a result of that. And this allows a whole range of opportunities in terms of revenue across the health, insurance, and wellness ecosystems available to AiCarer. So we launched the pilot all the way back in April, which is actually only a handful of months ago. And it went to a 42 family pilot. And this ran over a couple of months. And the outcomes of this were phenomenal. We were able to pick up a whole range of incidents. And as a result, Carers Queensland have funded this initiative to make the app available to people on the NDIS and the My Home Care plan as of next year. This is now being contracted. It is not pending anything. It's just legalities happening and will be signed within the next couple of weeks. This initial contract allows us to make the app available. And the context of this is, if they are on an NDIS or home care, they'll be able to claim both the watch and our app on their care packages. This gives us a pathway to a significant number of users, with Carers Queensland looking at it being somewhere between 50 to 150,000 users over the next 6 months. And this is what we're scaling up to support, as that is huge for both our data and our ability to collect that data, as well as start to understand and work with the ecosystem quite well, and matching that with a launch of our generalized app, as well as our home care push as well. This also has open pathways to Carers Australia that are across this initiative to take us nationally. And it's worth noting that this model is closely mimicking the model in the UK, which is much, much larger than where we are now. We have our first commercial initiatives with rehabilitation contexts. We were invited to Garmin Health Summit in New York, where we were able to work with a ton of partners, including Fidelidade, which is one of the large insurance providers in South America. A finalist in the 2025 Lord Mayor Awards, and we have a whole range of waitlists for consumers as well as home care providers. And we've run some initial tests to look at B2C, direct to consumer, where our cost per customer acquisition is about $100 to $140. And that's just another potential avenue for us to explore, although our intent is to go to market through organizations like Carers Queensland, care organizations, home care providers, and the such. It is a very large opportunity. It's a growth opportunity. The aging population is probably not something we need to spend a lot of time on, as we all know. Almost every nation is aging at significant rates. And that's only continuing to grow and is one of the top concerns of WHO. The remote monitoring market, both inside the clinical environment and outside, is phenomenally growing, as is the wearables. And wearables are simply expanding in their ability, moving from things like watches to rings to sensors in the ear and a whole range of areas. And the intent of AiCarer is to be able to be used by each and every one of those. And we're approaching this by market size. The watch wearable context has the largest market size for the moment. So that's where our focus is in terms of our integration and our product layer. We have a pricing model that mimics the full pendants, which tends to be about $1 a day. And then we have our live wellness coach, which is our AI monitoring that takes us more. And that moves into our ability to intervene early. Imagine if I'm going on holidays, but I do want someone to look after my mom, make sure she's okay while I'm out of range. These are all things that can enable with AiCarer in this context. It's worth noting that with our pilot, we are also providing the watches as part of this. And this represents an additional revenue opportunity for us without ever taking stock of hardware as AiCarer. And that's actually in the millions, not small money. We also have the opportunity to leverage block funding from enterprise pricing, as well as block funding from government for our B2B2C partners. And these are all things that we're proving out at the moment. So our ask today is we're looking to raise a minimum of 1 million or ideally a 2 million seed to scale impact. The goal is fairly direct. It's all in go-to-market, both in our Australian market to expand and support Carers Queensland and beyond, as well as Mark heading over to the UK to achieve the same outcomes there, of which we have initial discussions, which is a much more significant market. And we are looking in this model for a projected ARR of 5 mil within the next 24 months. And that's modeled out from what we've sort of talked about here today. So we hope that you join us to build that global standard for aging in place. And would love to take any questions, but I'll just pause and just have it on this slide on what happens when population health focused businesses are able to achieve user adoption and the type of exits that you can see comparables on that occur when they hit their scale, as well as what we're also seeing in current trends in the digital health category of investment as well. So do have that in mind. My name's Yaz, as discussed, one of the founders. Mark's with us here as one of the founders as well, and Chaitan is one of our founders, and he's advisors, and he's sort of ex-Google head of AI, and he's guiding the architecture and AI architecture and roadmap for AiCarer. Over to you guys for questions and look forward to it. And thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Yaz. That was super informative and really, really appreciate you giving us an overview of what you've achieved to date and what you're looking to achieve with this raise. I'm going to ask if you can stop sharing your screen so we can see your lovely faces. Perfect. Thank you so much. So could you describe what the competitor landscape looks like in terms of wearables or AI devices that are trying to achieve the same goals that AiCarer is looking to achieve?
Yeah, so absolutely. In terms of our competitor analysis, the major point of competition for us within the country is the full risk devices. These are most often proprietary devices designed to either be a watch or a pendant that they wear, of which they fall. Collects a fall and lets a carer or monitoring center know. The reason why I picked them is because they're using the same funding models that we are tapping into as part of our go-to-market, except we're obviously doing a lot more than that. And there's a whole range of life alarms and safety alarms. The market's quite significant over there. And then certainly they're doing a couple of 100,000 devices get put out every year in that context. And that helps us understand our market opportunity as well. Beyond that, there's organizations like UMPS and a few others where they have proprietary hardware devices, Home Guardian and so on, which are also working in this market. But their strategy is to have that proprietary device that they manufacture and develop. We're trying to augment this over off-the-shelf devices, which is our very significant differentiator in that market. As you move into the wider folk like Apple, Google, those guys, they don't play in regulated markets. They don't try to get close to regulated markets because it becomes very difficult for them to partner. Difficult for them to get that compliance, and also difficult for them to operate in multiple regions and deal with the regulatory framework around that. So they create these partnerships, as Garmin has done with us globally. They create these partnerships to support organizations like us building on their ecosystems. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's good to understand what competitors are in the marketplace and how you differentiate from them for sure. So, how is your data protected for users?
Yep. So, as both of us are in the digital health space, we are built on ISO 270 standards. We're built on SOC 2. These are compliance we have to get. We act on GDPR compliance as well. Data is encrypted as REST. Data is all stored sovereign in Australia on AWS platforms. And as a result, we don't share that. Where there is a need to share, such as a carer environment, that is specific consent sought from the user to give that consent to the carer, and the carer consenting into it as well. And that's all tracked and compliant on that front as well. We anonymize the health data. So obviously we use the biometric data to train models. That is de-identified data that's done. And at no point do we provide any identifiable data. It's worth noting that in the context of ours, we are not considered PID because we are not a clinical system.
Obviously, a really big part of the business is preventing falls and kind of predicting what could be happening there. What other medical episodes are you able to predict, and what have you been able to predict through your trials?
Yeah, so it's really important we're clear on terms. We do not predict medical incidents, and our intention is not to do that. What we are able to do is predict deviance in data. The reason is when we do get to points where we can make claims, there's a range of clinical applications and regulations that have to happen before I can say we make a claim of that nature. In the pilot that we've done, however, we've picked up quite a significant number of things, which is what led to Carers Queensland working with us. We were able to pick up seizures before seizures happened, let the carer know in the other room, who have come and prevented a potential injury. And this is feedback directly from the end users to Carers Queensland, so it's all third-party verified. For someone with schizophrenia, they had an episode that was starting in a shopping center. That anxiety rates alerted the mother. The mother was able to get to her before the incident occurred or would have gone up. And she reported that typically would be a police or an ambulance incident. That was completely avoided with what we're doing. We were also able to pick up an abuse case that was particularly sad with a 16-year-old boy who had non-communicable autism, where they weren't able to speak. And the rates were very significantly deviant on 1 day a week. That alert went out, an investigation occurred, and it turned out that boy was left in unfortunately a carer that was not behaving well, and that was an element. And finally, on an interesting note, there was a gentleman with a cardiovascular issue, and he was working with his cardiologist, and they weren't able to figure out what was going on, and this was causing him a lot of grief. AiCarer was beeping phenomenally, and they assumed and we assumed that the technology was broken. However, he took the data to his cardiologist. The cardiologist saw something in the data and the timing of the data in the evening. He then ran his own tests, and a pacemaker was put in emergency within 2 weeks that saved this person's life. So none of these are diagnostic in nature. None of these are designed to be clinically diagnostic. They were all early interventions that got the person we love to an actual clinician who did what clinicians do and save lives. And that's the intent of AiCarer, is we're not playing in the clinical setting. What we are doing is playing in the data set. And what we're showing in validation in that pilot is the impact that has. And the downstream impact that has in the hospital setting is significant. We also picked up a UTI, which is important to note. And these things prevent hospitalizations. This has a lot of an effect on the hospital ramping problem that happens in Australia. And a range of elderly. At the moment, I think it's almost 30% of emergency visits are from the elderly. So all of this are things that we're able to do in that 42 pilot. This is the reason why Carers Queensland have backed us in to make this available and are funding this initiative to run this initiative more, because they believe that at scale, and it kind of the data speaks for itself, at scale, this is going to have massive impact on our health system.
Yeah, it's pretty clear the touch points that AiCarer is across, and it's quite broad as well. So obviously there's a benefit to the carer, to the patient. Would we use the term patient?
No.
Cared for person.
I beg your pardon?
The cared for person.
Cared for person. And then there's obviously the wider impact that it has on the healthcare system as a whole, which I think is pretty important. Do you have any distribution strategies going forward that are going to be looking at other care systems rather than just Queensland carers?
Yeah, so the Queensland carer market, or the go-to-market, takes us to Carers New South Wales, Victoria, and Carers Australia to make it available to the country. And that's a very significant opportunity for us. The new home care standards and the home care reform, and we have about, I think, 7 home care providers that'll be running initiatives with us, allows us to do these initiatives that are care provision. So I'll give you an example with Queensland specifically, is out in regional Queensland, it gets really, really hot. And there's a lot of elderly having huge impact on that. So AiCarer is going to be used to track simply a person's rates, look at their location, comparing it to the local weather, and giving them a message to say, hey, look, could you please go inside? Could you please have some water? And get ahead of these initiatives. Because right now, the home care provider does this via wellness checks. And this is not a scalable model, and it kind of doesn't, it's not rational. We can get very smart about these alerts. And this initiative is worth a full project to this home care provider, and it's all funded via the new home care reform. This is one of about 7 use cases that we can then contextualize for care provision for our elderly within the home care sector. And residential aged care, the residential aged care model is struggling, and they're all sort of expanding out into home care. And they need a different set of tooling to deal with our home care, because fundamentally Australia is a very, very large country. It's very difficult to provide physical care out everywhere for a population of 25 or whatever million. These types of tools start to allow them to do that and do it extremely well, with one caveat that's very, very important. It's a little in the weeds, is one of the ways that home care providers are able to expand their funding is through what they call recalculation of the care. So if I'm a home care package 1, how do I move to home care package 2? Now, this happens over time, but to do so, they need to have a nurse to go out and do an assessment. This assessment is quite expensive to drive a nurse out and do this. With our models, we're able to show what deterioration is happening over time, and actually get a lot more intelligent about when we should send a nurse out to intervene and provide that care. So those areas, and then also in the rehabilitation context, and we're doing this initiative now, where I might go to a rehab facility for whatever, and what my rates are at the start, we can show that improved healthcare rates during that process of the rehabilitation. We can also look at acute responses, such as maybe I'm really stressed out before talk therapy, but maybe I sleep like a baby at night after. So my initial response might be negative, but my body actually does appreciate that, right? So those are ways for us to track that and also show the improved rates over time, and also see if there's a potential relapse if we have them take the watch home, if it's going back to their old rates. So there's a whole range of applications of this in mental health and rehab that are all there for us, but they're slower growth items on our opportunity list compared to, say, the carer context that's significant growth. But each of those are opportunities that we're pursuing, as well as finally in the insurance sector for elderly drivers, which leads to higher claims. what we can do with wearable to get ahead of them falling asleep at the wheel and things like that. Those are all opportunities that we are heavily involved in at the moment.
Brilliant. So currently you're working with Garmin wearables. Which are the wearables will you hope to work with in the future?
Yeah, so we have the wearable integration with Garmin, but it's abstracted out. It's based on sensor data. So any wearable that has the sensors, we're able to access, which is all wearables, right? We're just resource shy, so we have to pick our battles. Our generic approach here is based on market size. So the bigger brands like Samsung and Apple are obviously on the list. There are some limitations on those devices from a battery life perspective and a range of other bits that make it not as good as Garmin, that has exceptional battery life. And taking off the watch is one of the main non-compliance reasons, right? So multiple day battery life makes a world of difference. We have integrated with radar for the residential aged care setting already for physical radars. And then there's all of the other devices like the rings, auras, and all that we have on our roadmap. But going by it at market size at the moment and trying to hit off the ones with the most number of users, that's the strategy at the moment. But we want to be agnostic to the wearable itself.
So obviously you're raising capital at the moment. What are the next 6 months going to look like for AiCarer if you do raise that capital and if you don't raise that capital?
Yeah, Mark, I might throw that to you, mate.
Well, assuming we do raise the capital, we'll be completing the platform out to enable us to scale internationally. As Yaz mentioned, sensor expansion. The most important thing for us really is to get into the UK, as far as I'm concerned, obviously. We've got the market there is 10 million carers. That will take some time to get going. We've got to get nice compliance to really hit that market, and that's going to take us 12 months. And then we'll be able to get approved for councils. And one of the biggest advantages we have in that market, and equally here, is governments are running out of money. We're a very high capacity system at a very low cost comparatively to any other product out in the marketplace. And our ability to scale internationally, once we've got, once we're built out at product level, is switch on and get going. It's hugely scalable on a global basis.
Brilliant. So obviously the markets that you're going into to begin with is Australia and the UK. Where to after that?
Most likely the USA.
And what's the time frame for that? Do you have anything in mind at the moment, or will you see the proof in market in Australia and the UK first and then go from there?
We'll get success here, and I believe we'll get pulled into the US quite quickly.
Brilliant.
Maybe 3 years.
Awesome. So I think we've gone through all of our questions for today, and thank you for everybody who has joined. As I mentioned, I will be sending around the recording, so feel free to shoot through the link to anybody who you think might be interested in this investment opportunity as well. It will be open for a limited time, so you will need to get your investment applications in pretty early. But Yaz and Mark, I want to say thank you so much for sharing your time with us today, and for presenting such a brilliant product, which obviously has made such an impact on so many lives. And I can only imagine how many it will impact going forward. So thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. And it's great to have you on Venture Crowd.
Great. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.